Oh, hello. How are you? How are you doing? It's Sunday night, and we're live here. This is the Sunday one wind down show. Not really, but we'll call it that today for today's purposes. I am really looking forward to talking about this movie, and I have a very special guest today. I don't usually have too many special guests these days. On occasion, we get one, and I'm really stoked about this one because, in all honesty, we've podcasted once before in the in recent years, but I mean, even that was, you blink your eyes and four-ish years go by. It was about 4 years ago when I was on his podcast, and now he's joining me on my show for the very first time. And he's no stranger to podcasting. It's a gentleman, Bryan Dressel, who we went to school, we went to film school together, and this is my first time seeing him digitally, I guess, in 15 years. But we've casually, that's the beautiful thing about Facebook is you don't even really have to make much of an effort. You just stay connected to people that that you have a shared history with. And every once in a while that, you like something or you comment on something, or, you float, you float messages back and forth. And without even trying, you somehow just stay, casually connected. It's actually, I think this is where social media and Facebook is at its best, because it allows you to keep up with people without having to actually speak to them all the time, or put a lot of effort into things. And it's just nice. It's nice. So it's very nice. I'm very happy that Bryan is here. It's very good to see him as one would say. And he messaged me the other day, and had made mention of a movie that everybody, and I don't mean everybody, I just mean everybody who's in my immediate social media feeds, is talking about The Substance. And it's the same director whose name I really cannot say without butcher. I butcher everything. I'm a word butcher. Anybody who watches this channel knows. I'm going to try and pronounce her name. Coralie Fargeat. I don't know. She's French. She made a new film called The Substance, which I had been seeing trailers for at the Alamo Draft House for a little bit. And, the Alamo doing its typical backstabbing Alamo thing. We're going to show you the trailer to this movie that looks really great, but we're not going to actually play it. We're not going to program it. You're going to have to go elsewhere. So if you have a season pass, you have to go and spend $15, $17 elsewhere to see the movie that you are watching a trailer for at the Alamo Draft House, because you know what they say, a trailer is a promise, and Alamo breaks those promises all the time. That doesn't mean that I was at the Alamo today seeing Beetlejuice with my son. So Beetlejuice. In any case, I said to Bryan, I was like, if I don't know if I'm going to have anything to say, because he's like, have you seen it? I was like, I'm like gearing up to go, because I keep, that's the thing about the FOMO. For anybody who's into movies, especially horror films and genre films, there's a serious case of FOMO. You see people talking about it, the buzz, it creates a fever pitch, and you got to go out and see whatever the latest thing is so you can get in on the conversation. And so when Bryan was the catalyst for me, for pushing me over the edge, because it was, I went at 10 p.m. last night. It's a 2-hour and 20-minute movie. I mean, that's a lot for going on 39 years old, for me, because I could fall asleep late at night in movies. Yes, I feel old saying that, but it's true. So Bryan was like, yeah, dude, you got to see this movie. And I was like, all right, if I have anything to say about this, Bryan, you got to come on the show and we got to talk about it. And you know what? I got things to say. And so Bryan is here now and he's joining me. So let's welcome Bryan to the channel. Let's pull him out of the digital green room right now. Hi, Bryan. How are you?
Hello. I'm wonderful.
Bryan, are you still podcasting at all? Have you kept up with podcasting, or has that kind of gone the wayside for you?
I still do it. We don't do it. We don't push quite as hard as we used to. Like, we don't get like the huge numbers that we were getting for a while there. So now it's more of like, we do it. It's fun. We put it out there. If people listen to it, great. If not, great. I still get to talk to my friends. So
yeah, that's what it really is all about. And It is for that purpose too. It's a lot of fun. You have conversations, you put them out on the internet. It's kind of weird how that's become a thing because people have been having conversations for years and they're just lost to time. They're not documented the way they're documented now, but that's the way of the world.
Yeah, it's cool. Like, so we don't do the show quite like we used to. We do a show now called Binge Buddies. Check it out.
Okay.
Where we take like any sort of franchise. So it can be like a TV series, can be a movie series. Or we did the entirety of the Friday the 13th series. We just kind of go through every single episode or every single movie and just kind of review the whole thing as a chunk. So binge the whole thing together. So we're currently in The Good Place, which has been a ton of fun. We had to take a break from all of our horror movies. We did a lot of horror movies, but we're going to start up Nightmare on Elm Street here pretty soon. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, because October is you know, right around the bend. I do 31 days of Halloween here on the channel, and it's not just 31 movies, it's as many movies as I could fit into 31 days.
Nice.
So I've been doing that for about 11 years, but I've been reviewing them on the channel for about 4, and it's like it's always a marathon. So it's like September generally is not, and I was almost like, man, should I save The Substance for October? But I really felt like it had to be seen on the big screen. So I was like, I'm going to go see it on the big screen. I'm really glad I did. This is a movie that needs to be seen on the big screen. Right.
Yes.
We'll put a link to all your stuff down below. You got to send me the things so people will know where to find you. Before we begin, I will say I had Tommy McLowan, I think his name is, the director of Friday 6 on my show. Yeah. And it was cool because, you know, one of the things we talked about in relation to Friday the 13th is that he kind of shot it like a Universal horror movie. And when I had watched it, I desaturated my TV so that I had watched it for the first time in black and white because it kind of has the same lighting as a Universal horror film. So if you've never done that before, that's next time you watch Jason 6, you got to do it like that.
I will absolutely do that. That's pretty sick.
So let's launch right in and talk. First of all, how do you really pronounce this director's name? Because I'm just the worst person ever and can't pronounce anybody's name.
I was really hoping you weren't going to throw to me. I'm also not great with French names. I've been saying Coralie Fargeat, but that sounds horribly wrong and probably offensive. So I should probably not.
Very American.
Yeah.
We're going to say, let's just call her Coralie.
Coralie. All right.
Coralie, because it's probably like Coralie. It's like Coralie, something like that. Yeah.
Should have looked it up before we started recording. I thought about it and then I didn't do it.
I mean, I did look it up, but it doesn't mean I'm any better at pronouncing it unless I, do the Google thing. I don't know. So we'll call her the director in an effort to respect the not butchering of her French name. We'll say the director from this point on, but we know who the director is. And
yes,
that's why we're doing that. Now, you've seen I didn't realize at the time when I was watching the trailers at the Alamo when they were breaking their promises to me that this is the same director as 2017's Revenge.
Yeah.
So what
a stellar, like, these are her 2 movies. Like, holy crap, man. Like,
yeah,
she can bring it.
She not only can she bring it, but and I liked Revenge. I don't know if I liked Revenge as much as like I feel like the horror community in general liked Revenge. I thought it was a very powerful opening film for sure. I think The Substance as a follow-up, it's oceans above Revenge, and that it's a masterpiece, man. I mean, it's really, really freaking good. Doesn't have a bad bone in its body, all puns intended.
No, this movie, I went in 100% blind. I hadn't seen a trailer. I hadn't even seen a poster. I have a buddy who works for American Cinematheque here in LA, and he's like, I just projected this movie. You need to see it. I know you. I know what you like. Don't look anything up. All I knew going in was Demi Moore was in it. That was all I had. And a guy told me I like gross movies. I'll like this movie. So I could not have been more blind going in, and man alive was I impressed. Like, this was what a movie to go in blind.
Yeah. I mean, listen, typically I like to go into movies blind all the time. That's my preferred method. Or if I'm going to see, typically movies have 3 trailers. There's the trailer 1 is really the only trailer I like to be exposed to. If I'm going to be exposed to a trailer 2 and trailer 3, like trailer 3 for The Shape of Water might as well. I didn't even need to watch the movie because it just gave away, So I do generally try to avoid, like, I won't, if there's something streaming, I won't even watch a trailer. I'll just go in. So that's good on you for seeing this blind, because I feel like it just, that the second trailer of this movie gives away a lot more. The first trailer doesn't give anything away. It just really titillizes you and makes you go, I need to see whatever the hell this is. I have to see this.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, like, I watch them both now because now I'm obsessed with this movie. It's like everything I want in the rest of this year. But I watched them both, and I got to say, I'm pretty impressed. Like, they hid the majority of the stuff that I would say would be spoilers. Both of them did a pretty good job. The second one, for sure, you're right. Like, it spoils more than I'd like it to.
A little bit more.
But if I had only seen that and I'd seen it like somewhat recently, I don't think I'd have felt too disappointed by seeing that. They're pretty well cut trailers. They get a good job of giving you the vibe of what you're going to go see, which is fun. That's
what I felt about the first one, and that's why I was just like, I was sold, man. I was just really impressed and really glad to have seen it. I'll never forget. They did I saw a Brawl in Cell Block 99 blind.
Okay.
At midnight. That was a great blind watch, because I was like, I don't know what the hell this movie is. I don't know what to expect. And I was thoroughly entertained all the way through to the last frame. So what, okay. How do we begin here to talk about a movie like The Substance? How about this? I saw a lot of comparisons even before I saw the movie, which kind of annoyed me. I saw people saying, these are some films, if you like these films, you're going to like The Substance, which is probably the most tolerable form of light spoiler that I, as a moviegoer, can tolerate. Meaning, it's kind of like the Alamo Drafthouse pre-roll or any pre-roll. A pre-roll is kind of spoiling in the same way maybe a trailer is, because it's kind of giving you a hint as to what you're going to experience. So if somebody is saying, and by the way, we're obviously going to spoil the shit out of The Substance, so be prepared. Yeah, we don't have any choice if we're talking about it. But people were saying this movie is like Society and Dead Alive. And I also saw somebody mention 2001, which I thought was not, apart from a few stylistic choices of music cues and some lighting effects, I was like, I don't really think this has anything to do with 2001. But the Dead Alive and Society bits make sense,
Yeah. So when my buddy recommended it to me, it's when I started talking about Cronenberg. Like, he and I started having a conversation, like, and I brought up his son's film that came out last year. I'm forgetting the name of it now, with Mia Goth and Alexander Skarsgård.
So good. Infinity Pool.
Thank you. Yes, Infinity Pool. So I was bringing up how much I loved that movie. This is my favorite movie of the year last year. Just absolutely incredible.
Loved it.
And when I got done talking about that, he's like, have you seen The Substance yet? And that's where that came from. He's like, if you like Cronenberg and that sort of style, you're going to dig this one. And it's like, okay, I got enough from that, then I'm in.
If somebody asked me to nutshell this movie, I actually wouldn't go with Society or Dead Alive. What I would have said was, Death Becomes Her meets Requiem for a Dream by way of David Cronenberg. That's what this movie is.
Yeah, that is a pretty dead on thing. I mean, all the way up to the needle going in like a moldy hole. Like, that's very Requiem for a Dream.
I didn't even think about that. Was literally not what I was talking about, but you're right. Yes.
Yeah, that's right there, man. Like, I don't like needles, so that was the stuff that was tough for me. Like the sewing up the back, which we're going to spoil everything anyways, but that's all over the poster.
Rip it open.
The sewing up the back, and then the constant needle injections. Those were rough.
Yeah.
But still done very well. Like, not enough to bump me from the movie by any stretch.
The thing about now, in comparing and contrasting Revenge and The Substance, not that they're why would you compare and contrast these two movies if not for the fact that they're made by the same director? And that's my basis for said comparison. And what's interesting is that I feel like there's a there's the message from what I remember, because I saw it when it came out in theaters and I haven't seen it since. Saw it once. The message of revenge, it's really just very surface level in terms of, it's a revenge. It's literally a revenge story, and there's not much more going on to it, and it's more about how that revenge is executed than anything kind of going on underneath. Whereas the substance has a premise. It deals with themes that we've seen before, particularly in the movie Death Becomes Her. One of my, what a great secret. I've always said that's like the secret Tales from the Crypt movie from the 90s.
It's a good way to look at it. Yeah,
it really is. It really is. It's almost a Tales from the Crypt movie. It's directed by Zemeckis too, so that makes sense. So we've seen these themes before, but never, I don't know, tackled in this kind of way. And typically when you have a theme like this, the message is usually it's kind of shoved down your throat a little bit, like it's really forced, heavy. And I felt that it was so subtle all the way through. It was not, it was there. The messaging was there, but it was not, it wasn't smacking you in the face. And I really appreciated that. It allowed me, it treated me as a viewer with more dignity. Like I have faith that you have enough intelligence to know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I won't continue comparing this to Revenge for much more than what I'm about to say, but there is something to be said about, so we have that revenge film, which is, it's technically a rape revenge film. And then you have this one, which is very much a body horror film. And the reason why I only think that they're worth comparing is because these are two films that exist in genres that are predominantly made by male filmmakers.
True.
Almost, not exclusively, but almost exclusively. Almost always it's a male voice trying to tell these stories. So these two movies coming at you from a female point of view really kind of changes the landscape a lot, especially in this one. Like you can see the seeds of it in Revenge for sure. And I absolutely recommend Revenge to everybody, even if that rape revenge really bothers you. Totally understand that it should. It's a very upsetting thing. My wife, it's the only movie in that area that she'll watch, and she loves revenge. So like there's something for you. But this one I think does this a little bit more, because this one has to comment a whole bunch on the male gaze, and coming from the female point of view, commenting on that male gaze is, I've never seen anything like it. Like it does it so insanely well, of making it very in your face, lots of close-ups, gratuitous close-ups that almost make you feel uncomfortable. And it's like, yeah, it should, because this is gross. And the movie has this whole thing of this is gross throughout the whole thing. And it's just, I keep saying the whole thing, but it's very well done.
Yeah, I concur there. Like, particularly when there's a moment when, I'm going to butcher her name too. Margaret,
Qualley,
Margaret Qualley, who is, a breathtakingly beautiful woman. She's, doing her thing, and something pops out of place for a moment. And just yeah, but it's just interesting. It was the way that she dwells on the commentary about the gaze, the male gaze and whatnot, is that they have to go through something is wrong, and they have to go through frame by frame. They get to a point where they're saying, let's take it frame by frame, as just to sort of, and you feel her anxiety about, like, the invasive quality of, like, please don't scrutinize my body. And how, it's like, it's not something, the bottom line is, we can't let this go, and we need to go frame by frame to know what is wrong, because everything has to be perfect. And
it's the only time in the entire film where Sue calls for a cover-up.
Yeah.
When they're going through that thing, the whole time she's fine, wearing next to nothing throughout almost every scene we see the actress in. And in that one sequence, when they're going frame by frame, tight on her butt, just like what popped in that body, that's the only time she calls for a cover up. And like, you can take it in the plot reasons of she's worried that there's something there, but there's also something to be said there that that's the moment the director chose to have her want a cover up. It's when they're going, a whole huge group of men crowding around one monitor to go take it frame by frame. Right. It's just, it's very upsetting to watch. And like, that's not even getting close to the stuff that's actually gross in the movie. Wrong.
What's interesting, obviously there's a lot of, like, really graphic and like gratuitous body horror stuff that Bryan's referring to. But
Mhm.
what almost makes that moment more even more horrifying than all that stuff is that it takes the reverse. It's almost like a Spielberg hiding the shark sort of thing,
Mhm.
because what you're doing is what she's doing, the director, she's showing us what is supposed to be, the pinnacle of female perfection personified in this moment. And then something it's almost like, what is it called? The uncanny valley.
Mhm.
She chooses to go uncanny valley. So it's what happens under the skin, out of sight, but it's like something looks wrong in a place where it should not look. And in a way, it's just as effective as everything that's going to happen later.
Yeah.
But it's done on completely the opposite end of the spectrum of the body horror, which I thought was a great choice.
Yeah, I mean, usually when I go into something body horror, like I'm expecting to be a little uncomfortable the whole way through. And in this one, I gotta say, the body horror stuff didn't bother me nearly as much as this stuff that we're talking about. And I think because of like this stuff hits so hard that when I got to the body horror, I'm like, okay, I can handle this, because that made me way more upset.
Right. Yeah. And you were talking about vulnerability and whatnot. The movie is literally carried by, and it's not going to happen, but because the Academy they're just such snobs when it comes to stuff. But Demi Moore should be nominated for an Oscar she deserves the Best Actress Oscar for this movie. This might be the performance of her career. I mean, really.
She is going to pick up a boatload of statues from a whole bunch of festivals and award ceremonies that aren't the Oscars and Golden Globes.
Yeah,
but I totally agree. I think that's where this thing
lands.
Right. That is some of the best acting I've ever seen her do. And she took her lumps for a long time there. Like a long time. Right. She was kind of the butt end of jokes of like, oh, Demi Moore. And it's like, she was always good. She just, for some reason, the world turned on her for a minute. So having this like renaissance with Demi Moore coming back, and especially in a role like this, it's exciting. Like, she's so talented and just awesome, and she carries this movie.
And vulnerable. She's vulnerable because the thing about Demi Moore and what's interesting, what really takes this up and really just brilliant when it comes to the casting her and putting faith into her, is that Demi Moore went through a press cycle where it's like, oh, she's older, but she looks really good. She's really good she ages really well, and this, that, and the other. And that was like a thing. That was like that people like the media and the tabloids and everybody would comment on that. So for Demi Moore to go, okay, because obviously there's got to be, I don't know, I won't assume, I can't make an assumption, but I have to imagine, I have to surmise that Demi Moore, that this was a personal choice for Demi Moore. Like, it meant something to her, that she pulled from a very real place in a variety of different ways, because she's 61 doing full body nudity. Mm-hmm. And it's just, not only was it brave and vulnerable, but I mean, I have to say it, she looked incredible she looks incredible.
She does.
Amazing, like absolutely amazing. And so, and it's my understanding that, she felt very, she felt it was scary. It was a scary thing. So she was I thought that was a very brave, courageous choice. And it was so, this is a movie, in general, growing up, watching movies in the 90s, whatever, gratuitous nudity, it goes hand in parcel with any kind of genre body horror movie. And this is a movie where the nudity is so important to the story and the character, and how it's almost essential. You need that element to amplify all of the body horror that is to come.
But I'm going to jump on that for a second. The thing that I find the most interesting about this, and why I think this director is, I mean, she is in my list of, if her name's attached to a movie, she's got my money every time.
Yeah. Oh, same.
This was done so well because, yes, there's gratuitous nudity throughout the whole movie. These two women get naked left, right, and center.
Maybe gratuitous isn't the right word, by the way.
Yeah, but so that's true. So that's where I'm kind of getting at, is gratuitous is probably the wrong word. Just a lot of nudity. It's never sexual. When they're actually naked,
Right.
it's never in a sexual context. It's
Not
never
once.
for the male gaze. It's never to like check this out.
Nope.
All that happens when they're fully clothed. But when they're naked, it's in those very vulnerable, very hard-hitting moments where it's emotional, it's important, and that's where it happens. So it's never like to enhance the male gaze. Like it's not in these like beauty shots of these naked women. They just happen to be naked because that's what's the important part in that scene. It's so insanely well done, and like
really
hats off. Like I'm just
really
constantly impressed the more I think about this movie.
And then here's the interesting thing about the tone of the movie. Like, first and foremost, you mentioned Cronenberg, and I guess the best way to describe it is this movie takes place in Cronenberg's world, meaning that, like, without it being said or even discussed in any kind of official way, it's almost like this story which she wrote, directed, produced, and edited this movie. This is an auteur film. Okay. She did all that. She did the whole kit and caboodle, man. This is the authorship of this film is significant. And I wonder, in her mind, in her creative process, if it's like, is she starting? It's like, we're going to start in the world of Cronenberg. Like this takes place in the Cronenbergian world of, like, in the same breath as Crimes of the Future, or even, I feel like Brendan Cronenberg's films take place inside of David Cronenberg's world as well. It's all like kind of an extension, talk about a guy who somehow not only who carries the family name, like Cronenberg out Cronenberg's Cronenberg in a way. And that sentence makes sense if you think about it.
It does. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
And I feel like she's right there with Brandon.
Yeah.
Out Cronenberg, just fucking, oh God. So that's like the tone. It feels like it's down to the fact that, even though it doesn't take place in the 80s, but the production design has a very 80s LA feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are cell phones, there are thumb drives, there are flat screen TVs. So we know it's not the 80s, but it still feels like the 80s. And I feel like that lends to the Cronenbergness of it all.
Cronenberg, and then tell me if you agree. Very like, because also that, I know you heard 2001, but like I wouldn't go 2001, but I would go Kubrick. Like I do feel a lot of Kubrick, especially the way like he shot Hallways and that sort of stuff. Like it had that sort of vibe to it. And nowhere near as much in the story, but just that sort of look. And that I think kind of brought me into that time frame of, you're right, it's not the 80s, but it's also kind of the 80s. Like it's the 80s with cell phones and better TVs, but like it's still kind of there. Like they're not as accessible as they would be in like modern day beyond having the cell phones. Like it still feels like there's that barrier, or they wouldn't be able to get away with things like Sue being gone for a week every other week. Like there's those sorts of things we have to make that leap. And if you kind of keep it in that sort of 80s time frame, it's a little easier to wrap your head around that, even if it is modern.
I agree. Well, what's interesting too is to go back, again, to dwell on the tone a little bit in what you're saying right now with all that kind of logic. It almost feels like what we're seeing is not. It's not. What's the right way to put this? It's kind of. There's a dream logic, there's a dream quality to this world as well, where, it just like, it really, really sort of spearheaded by Dennis Quaid's character, like it's just, and then the fact that she does, Sparkle does like 80s workout videos, like that sort of thing too.
For like a morning segment that they don't really ever give us any details on, but it's enough that I can be like, okay, I get it. She has a morning segment where she does workout. Got it. Okay.
Right. But it's the morning segment. It's the special, but it's kind of like, it's almost like we're speaking in like sort of broad tropes that, so really it's not it's almost like it's not supposed to really take place in any kind of it's not supposed to be rooted in any kind of realistic setting in that kind of way, because it's just kind of like we don't know Dennis Quaid. He's just like the boss, and she's just the starlet. So it's almost like you're speaking in these very, you know what I'm really trying to say is everything's very archetypal, right? Like everything's like archetypes. So there's no real, and it doesn't penetrate on that level. It doesn't penetrate very deep at all, you know?
No, but it also doesn't have to. Like
no, totally not.
It doesn't have to get its job done. Like it gets you there.
No, for sure. But like but what I mean is that there's just something, and then there's like a dreamlike quality, like like at the end when they're like smile and she's like missing 3 of her teeth, and you have all these execs, like there's almost like there's like a slapstickish kind of like quality to the black humor, the black comedy of what we're seeing in a way.
I describe to my wife as like a manic sort of comedy. Like it's just sort of insane, but it's there and it makes sense, but it also kind of doesn't in a way. Like the whole, like meet these shareholders and it's just a whole bunch of old white dudes.
Right.
And
that's what I mean. Like sports ball, like the game.
Yeah.
Like that's what I mean. It's like, we don't refer, it's like, it's not like who's playing the game is what, tell me the sports teams that are playing this game. It's like, hey, you're coming over this Saturday to watch the big game. The boss is coming over for dinner. I hope I get that big promotion. It's like these broad strokes that don't really, they're like these generalized story broad strokes. And I feel like all the characters kind of inhabit that sort of like world. Like you don't really as you said, there's the morning show, there's the New Year's Eve special. We don't really understand who Dennis Quaid is. We don't really understand what her sort of job is. Like she just does workout segments, and that's it.
And on top of that, we are told constantly, we have all these fans. The fans love you. The people love you. We don't really ever get a lot of evidence of that.
Right.
And it's like, that adds to that whole, like, it's not really, I hesitate to say like untrustworthy narrator, because I don't think that's where it's at, but it gives you that same sort of like experience of like, what is going on?
Dream. It's like a dream.
Yeah.
It's a dream logic. That's what I mean when all the stuff that I'm just not doing a very good job of verbalizing what it is I'm trying to say. I think you're understanding what I'm saying. I just can't say it. There's a word Bob Rose would know. Bob Rose, a friend of mine, he would literally know what I'm trying to say right now. He does like a really great screenwriting podcast, and he would be like, oh yeah, that's this thing. And I'd be like, right, exactly. And I just
that thing.
Say it. Right.
Well, whatever Bob Rose said, that's what we're trying to say here.
Well, it's funny because literally I'm saying the thing, like that's literally what we're talking about. It's just like a general. I'm literally doing the thing right now in saying that. Yeah.
But you can even take it one step further. Like even the substance, you don't get anything more than that. You never meet anyone who works for the company. You never, you hear one on the phone. You never hear a second person. You get nothing. It's just the substance. It will give you the cure for the better life,
which is great because, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, it is great because it keeps everything matters. There's no like, oh, like we'll do this later. It's like, this is the thing for the show, for the New Year's party, because you are the host, and like everything is as important as it needs to be. Everything's firing at top cylinder.
Yeah. And, again, sometimes what you do leave unsaid allows us to kind of write in what we think. It captures our imagination and lets us kind of figure out the rest or put 2 and 2 together. Or again, and as in trying to write things myself or just in general, the notion of like, you don't have to explain the mumbo jumbo. You just have to, it's just a thing. It corrupts your body in this kind of way. It operates by these rules. The rules aren't really based in science, apart from anything that we try to say when we speak with authority of like, well, you have to transfer because then you have to allow the serum can only rejuvenate in this kind of way. The rules aren't even really established. There's a few rules that are kind of established, but then everything that happens after that is almost met with by the voice over the phone of like, oh yeah, that will happen if you don't do this. Yeah, and it just suddenly it just adds on to whatever it is. Like, so it doesn't really matter. It does, like the rule. Sometimes rules are really important. Like it follows. The rules are little inconsistent and it follows. That's always a very famous example. In this one, it's like the rules don't really matter. Like just the fact of the matter is and it keeps going back to the idea that you're just one person, even though there's clearly two halves here. You're one person, and you need to treat when you get angry at that other person, you really have only to be angry with yourself, or you need to not hate that other person. You need to love yourself, which is a theme, an overall arcing theme of the movie.
And I think that's where like it really drives home. Like if you have like there's so many different stories and themes within this movie, even though it's still, you can still understand it very easily. But having that, like, you need to love yourself, there is only one, that really drives home to me what I think is like the biggest story in the whole thing, or the biggest through line, plot line, whatever you want to call it, which is your younger self and your older self who's out there in the future are not two separate people. You are one. If you screw up your body now, you are screwed in the future. You can't take it back. You can't fix it. It's not getting better. And that is the biggest thing in this movie. And it really hits that message home.
You just single-handedly nailed it. You nailed exactly that. You just said it so perfectly and succinctly. That's the message of the movie. That is the core message of the movie. I didn't even think about, like, I thought about it, but I didn't think about it like that. It's literally, I mean, that's the idea, is that you're splitting the youth, being young with being old, and that you are two halves of the same person, that how you treat yourself when you're young and the consequences, and that you don't think about the consequences in youth. And it's interesting how it's reversed for Demi Moore's side of it, where she doesn't think about the consequences. She's so desperate to be loved that she doesn't think about the further consequences of how it's going to damage her moving farther into the future, where she rapidly ages. So it's interesting how there's no consideration for the other half. And that's when things get really sticky. And Brian, you know what else is sticky? Stickers. And here at the Frumess channel, we are sponsored by riotstickers.com, home of the stickiest stickers you could possibly imagine. We have a special promotion, which you can learn more about right in the description down below, where we have a brand new promo. If you go to riotstickers.com/Frumess, that's FRUMESS, you can get 100 die cut stickers for $33. Now, Brian, do you know what a die cut sticker is?
I feel I've heard the phrase a bunch. I can't tell you exactly what it is.
A die cut sticker is a sticker that you can basically cut into any shape that you desire using a computer guided scalpel. So if you want a sticker in the shape of Demi Moore, okay, you can get a sticker in the shape of Demi Moore, who, by the way, I was in an elevator with not a few months ago. It was like a year and some months ago, October of 2022. I was in an elevator with Demi Moore in New York City, and she was wearing those same big sunglasses that she was wearing in the movie. And all I could think about were those big sunglasses, when I was like, holy fuck, she loves those sunglasses. She's wearing them as her character in that movie. That's hilarious. In any case, you can get 100 stickers for $33. You can get 200 stickers for $66. That's an incredible deal. Free shipping. Man, like Sharpie Riot, he's the man. He'll shape up your stickers exactly how you want them. Let's play the 60-second Riot Stickers theme song, and we'll be right back to talk more about The Substance with Brian.
We make stickers, banners, and buttons too, posters and promo cards. There's nothing we can't print for you. From stage backdrops to bass drum heads, we can print on shirts, we can print on hats, we can print on pants. Cheap prices and high quality, quick turnaround times and free shipping. We also offer free artwork support, great customer service, and so much more. RiotStickers.com, Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com, Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com, Riot Stickers, we are the bomb. RiotStickers.com, Riot Stickers, we are the bomb.
And that is a promise. Okay, we are back. We're talking about The Substance. We were talking about themes. We're talking about age. We're talking about Um, we're talking about all this stuff and more. What else? What were we talking about before I segued into the riot stickers thing? I'm trying to remember.
That was right after we discovered that your youth can start eating your old age, and that's where things start getting sticky. As she wants to stay younger longer, and that doesn't work out too well for the old version of yourself.
Right, and it's just
quite literally trying to do that does not work out well for the older version of yourself.
Right, and it's just amazing how. And it's just amazing how, like, she doesn't have to feel any, even though she's linked to Demi Moore and she can be hurt by whatever happens to Demi Moore. She doesn't. She still goes through with doing with basically with instant gratification, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, they love me and they love me now, and I don't want to give that up for anything, even if not understanding that, like, in the long game, if you just do the one thing that you're supposed to do, that everything will be, okay. And can't do it.
Everything is totally fine if you follow the rules.
Right. We talked a little bit about Dennis Quaid and Dennis Quaid's character. Do you have anything you like to say, or what do you have to say about him?
Well, I'll start with the fact that his 2 movies in theaters right now are this and Reagan is just mind-blowing. Like, what 2 different films? I think this is some of the best work he's ever done.
Yeah.
He is absolutely incredible in this movie and just absolutely vile. Like, the most disgusting person you can possibly imagine. And who better to have be the face of, like, you need to stay pretty and smiling than this disgusting man. The sequence of him having that dinner or lunch or whatever it is,
the shrimp.
Where he's basically firing her, but also doesn't want to say the words of "you're fired." It's just, at 50, it stops. It's like, what stops? I'm gonna go talk to that guy for a minute. It's just like that's it. But him eating that shrimp with the cheese dip and just the close-ups on his mouth and just that constant, like, eating sound, it is some of the grossest stuff in the movie, which is, again, saying a lot given where the movie eventually goes.
It's interesting that you say that, because it's almost like, again, it's the same sort of idea as, like, the spectrum of grotesque body horror versus the subtle body horror that we see a little bit earlier on. It's the same thing. We've kind of been bookended with these 2 just ridiculously gross scenes that couldn't be more different, and yet somehow are equally gross. He looks incredible. He's 71 years old and he looks amazing for 71. I mean, it's like, he does not age either, really.
No, he does not. I had no idea he was that old. I mean, I guess I should have guessed, but man,
I mean, he's been listen, Dennis Quaid's been around, man. He's been around. He was great. He was great in that role. Again, he's playing an archetype. There's there's no real depth to his character, I mean, really, I would say I feel like Demi Moore is probably the most. Elizabeth Sparkle is probably has the most layers to anybody in this movie, right?
I mean, she's really the only one with layers beyond was he a nurse, the medical assistant when she's in the hospital who convinces her to go take it?
Right.
He's only gets that second level because he's also taking the substance. So we get that one scene with him in the diner later that shows, like, oh, this is what happens to him. Like, he's also getting eaten by his younger self. So, like, like, that's really the only person, and that you don't get much more than that. I think beyond that, this is just, the Sparkles movie. Like, she's the only character that really has any ups or downs. And I think that kind of helps the movie in a way.
But even what's interesting, even Sue, who is the other half of Elizabeth Sparkle, doesn't really seem, I mean, she's not too deep, and I think that's because she's meant to be, she's just nothing more than an extension of Elizabeth. So therefore, she's sort of accentuating everything that's going on with Demi Moore at the end of the day. So
she's basically just living everything Demi Moore wishes she could still be doing had, Dennis Quaid not fired her or said, "You're done," or whatever it was that he was doing. Like,
right.
He's living.
I would say, what's interesting too, and again, just what shows a testament to the brilliance of the director. Obviously, again, we keep talking about this body horror stuff that happens, and it's basically just you have grotesque transformations, grotesque bodysuits at the end, like saggy, like flapjack titties that just I have never seen anywhere. Like just really.
You've never seen a shoulder throw up a boob before?
I've never seen a shoulder throw up a boob. Just really, really outrageous sort of stuff. Obviously, what's funny too? I gotta tell you, the end transformation, the very last transformation was obviously grotesque and sad.
Yep.
But it really, it kind of paled in comparison to the previous transformation. Like the complete Elizabeth Sparkle, but like super old and like gnarled.
Yeah, that was rougher.
I think that was a lot more rough than because you really felt, you felt, I don't know, I feel like you felt the full pathos because you know what it was? That was her mistake. And she was like a complete character. Whereas Sue's mistake was the final transformation. So it's more gnarled and grotesque, but I feel like there's not much more to it the way that there is in that other one, because the other one is the sermization of all of Demi Moore's mistakes. Whereas, this one's just compounded and therefore it's not as deep. I feel like, I don't know.
No, I would also say if we want to call it the monster sparkles or whatever we want to end up calling the thing at the end of the movie. Yeah. I agree with you. It doesn't hit as hard as the gnarled old woman thing, but the monster at the end, it's more of, if the company keeps talking about you can't escape yourself, you're always one. They have the putty and they slap it together. It's on all the trailers. That is what that is at the end. That is the combination of all of their mistakes, of all of Sue's mistakes, all of Sparkle's mistakes, slammed into one monstrosity.
Right.
But because they're together now, the two people that we've been attached to throughout the entire film, who we're emotionally invested in, are now one person. So it's just them versus the world, who we haven't been super invested in the whole time. This sounds negative. I don't mean it as a negative. Whereas when we have the older gnarled woman, that's where we actually get the showdown of the young versus the old, like the one who took advantage, the one who's been taken advantage. Mm-hmm. So there's just more stakes in that moment, whereas the end feels almost like a celebration of like everything that we've seen so far, and like we're just going full culmination's a better word. Yes. That's where it all is going, but the stakes and the emotion hit in the first one that you're talking about. Right. I think they're both brilliant and great, but yes, in the fight.
I will say this though, there is one element of the monster sparkles at the end that may, equate, and this is where things go full screaming mad George, the guy who did the special effects in Society. You really get a full sense of that. But you see Elizabeth's face.
Oh, she blasted on her back.
Right.
Yeah.
And the expression on her face, she is fully cognitively aware. She has kind of been resurrected. She's alive. Mm-hmm. And she is aware of ultimately of all this. And that's the final thing that fades back into the star, which is a great little bookend, showing the star established and then fading, just a great little, on the nose metaphor. But the fact that that's the last visage of her is that face. But the face itself, the shock of how did I get here? So in that way, I would say that had as much gravitas and impact as the previous transformation. But it's honestly still, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. No, but her standing at the stage and like crying out of like, it's still me. I'm still Sue. And you have the shoulder blade shining out like, I'm Elizabeth. We're both here. Like they're both extremely cognizant of where they are, and they're stuck in this silly putty monstrosity thing.
That she puts the face of her, she takes the poster and she puts it on her face. It was just so and
puts lipstick on it, like every little bit.
But it just brings it home. It brings the whole thing home about that really you just need to be happiest where you are.
If she just stayed as that face that she ripped out of her poster, she'd be fine.
She'd be fine.
She'd be fine. Like she'd be retired, she'd be annoyed, she'd be mad at everybody, everything's going on for sure, but she wouldn't be this.
The cooking of the food too. There was a lot of disgusting food.
There
The way
was.
and I love that. I'm a big fan of. I don't know if you've ever seen The Dark Backward. I feel like they do a lot of really it's Adam Rifkin's movie starring Judd Nelson and Bill Paxton.
That movie totally escaped me, and I feel like it shouldn't have. Good Lord.
Oh, okay. You have to see that movie. Yeah. And it also deals with show business, and I wouldn't call it body horror, but there is some body stuff in that as well.
Okay.
And, absolutely worth your time. Definitely takes place in like a surreal kind of world the way this does. I wouldn't call it Cronenbergian, but worth your time. Worth mentioning in this episode as it relates to the substance, though. The by far the most distressing scene out of all, and it was probably the realest. I would imagine, again, I don't want to assume for anybody. I don't want to assume for Demi Moore, the actual actress. I don't want to assume for the director. I don't want to assume for women in general. But as a viewer watching this and trying to empathize and understand from those perspectives, especially as a cisgendered male, right? Like, I would say that for me, in a way, just as brutal as the body horror stuff, and really just what felt really like a real moment probably lived by many people, and whether men, women, or whoever, just people in general. When she decides to go on the date with her classmate. And she can't bring herself to leave her apartment, and she keeps redoing her makeup over and over, and she gets frustrated and smears the makeup. And is that just, there's something so real to that. I'm sure, like, there's some sort of truth. That's the word I'm looking for. There's probably some serious truth in being a person who is aging or reaches a certain age and just feels so insecure with what they want, with who they are compared to what they once were, and trying to bring that out through means of makeup and not succeeding and feeling so frustrated in the process. That was sad to watch. That was hard.
That scene for me is, I think, the only light in the tunnel of her having a shot at getting like an Academy Award nomination. Because like that's your scene that you can put on like the roll, like when they're showing like the clips from the movie. That one you can show, that one you can expose, and she's so good in that and just sells that. Whereas like I've been married for over 10 years. Like I dated the one girl, I married the one girl I dated in college. Like I've been very like, I didn't have to worry too much about the dating world. I've been very fortunate in that life, but I can watch this and I can go like, yeah, I can see that. Like I can look at my, like, I'm 39 next year. I can look and see like, oh, my hair is getting a little bit thinner. I wear more hats now. Like my beard is like, I can see and have that. Oh yeah. I could look in a mirror and go like, I can't go on a date with someone. Look at me. I'm decaying here. And that's me. Like, I'm not Demi Moore, who's gorgeous, like absolutely gorgeous. Universally acclaimed, gorgeous woman. And if she's having that problem, my God, like, whoo. That is something to just chew on, and like it's tough. It's
and
very
again
tough
the
to watch.
vulnerability. I feel like she's drawing from a very real place, and I don't know if she's done any interview. I'm sure she's done a bunch of press junkets. I wonder if that scene has ever come up in conversation, and what I'd love to hear what she did indeed had to say, or if I had seen this movie and I was riding the elevator and I had no shame. And just said, hey, so that movie you just did, tell me about that scene, huh?
That'd be the one to ask about. Like, she's great throughout the entire film, but like that is some of the best acting she has. And that's not saying like when she's like the old decrepit woman acting through however many pounds of makeup and suit she's wearing, she crushes it still. Like she
really does.
If you ever doubted Demi Moore, watch this thing. Your doubts all be gone. Like she is as good as she was ever claimed to be.
And, we're coming up on the hour. And so I want to thank you so much for coming on here. I thought this was a really great conversation about this movie. Sometimes I watch a movie and then I need to talk about it. I need to digest it. And this was a great digestion of all these things. So,
I even met up with a friend of mine today at the mall, my friend Laura, because she saw it, the screening after I did. Like, we high-fived on our way past each other. And it's like, I'm not going to tell you a thing. I'm not going to tell you if I like it or not. Just text me when you're done. We'll talk then. So then we had to meet at the mall today and talk even more about it. Because it's just, it's a movie that you hear this a lot about films. They need to be discussed. This one actually, it holds that. It needs to be discussed.
I'm curious, what did she have any observations or insights from her perspective as a woman that you found interesting?
I mean, she did, but I would feel not right speaking for her.
That totally understandable. Totally understandable. Yeah. That makes sense. So that brings me to the end scene. You know the one. Wow. I mean, between the music and the blood, and I mean, just like, hey, Peter Jackson, hold my beer, Peter Jackson. Let me try and out dead alive you. And, you know, and the funny thing is there's not like violent gore. It's not violent gore. It's more like, it's just a lot of blood. There's like a Carrie element. It's almost like an ode to Carrie too, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
I can see some Carrie there. The dress on the stage, the blood. Yeah, it's all there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of almost like a deconstruction of the end scene in Carrie. That you could throw that in there on top. So this movie just wears so many different influences and, you know, callbacks to other films, but while all at the same time doing something that feels fresh. I mean, down to the fact that they're literally using a green reagent from Reanimator. Like, it's exactly, it's a rejuvenator serum, but like, you know, it might as well be the green reagent from Reanimator, which is what I was thinking about while watching it. So it's like, it really does pull from everywhere without ripping it off. And it's like, to me, those are the best genre films, man. Like, where you're where I can see where you're pulling from, but I can see that you're doing it in your own really unique, fresh way that feels totally original, succinct to a voice, your voice, you know?
And in that final sequence, like you're saying, it really shows that. Like, I'm all for a movie taking a victory lap when it's earned. A lot of times it's unearned and like, okay, we get it.
Yeah.
And that was a victory lap that was extremely well earned. Just the cannon of blood hitting everyone. Like, there's that shot, like I caught it in the trailer of like the Dennis Quaid, like just ripping his head around with all the blood. Like, caught it in the movie too. Like, blood cannon everywhere. And I'm so for it. That was awesome. It was just like, it felt like almost cathartic in a way of like everything you've been watching this. You've been so tense and so uncomfortable with everything from like the social aspects to the actual body horror to like,
it was catharsis.
It was, and then you have catharsis. That. Like, my theater was laughing loudly. Like, people were enjoying themselves. Like, it felt like you finally had the foot taken off your back of like, just spray everything that's been making you do this to yourself with blood. Just get it all. Like, it's so good.
It's not a moment of despair, and it's not a disturbing moment. In fact, it's funny how it is. It's meant to be a moment of levity, of comedy, almost like the ridiculousness. It's almost saying like, these games, these hoops that we jump through, how ridiculous they are, and we can't help but laugh at what it does to us by making us bleed out of all of our orifices. Like, we're human beings. Like, the idea that this person, or this, I don't know, surmisation of persons on stage is still a human being that bleeds underneath, and
bleeds a lot.
Right, bleeds a lot, and then ultimately falls apart, like literally falls apart, you know?
Yep.
At the end, and then all that's left is her face, is her, the last little bit of her. She fades away, and it is. I would say it's a near perfect genre film. Like, I can't. I don't think I have a single, you know, criticism or constructive criticism. There's nothing. It's perfect. It's a perfect movie.
I'm going to be hard. Like, I know end of September, we still got a few more months left in the year. It's going to be, I will be surprised if a movie beats this for my movie of the year. Like, it will take something special.
I will say I'm looking forward to Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.
I am too.
Gonna be interesting. It's gonna be. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. So
that stands a chance. This is gonna sound really corny compared to what we've been just talking about. Wild Robot, that has a chance. That movie looks fantastic. I'm excited to see Wild Robot.
Fantastic. Yes,
it looks really good. But like, I don't think it will be as special as this one. Like, and that's kind of where I'm going to. Like, this movie was something else for me. And like,
really
no matter how good Nosferatu, no matter how good Wild Robot, they're movies I can kind of guess where they're going to go. And that's a bold claim with a Robert Eggers movie, but I can kind of guess where they're going to go. This one, I had no clue at any point what we're doing.
And also, you know, we're anticipating this Robert Eggers movie for years. The beautiful thing about a movie like The Substance is that like you turn a corner and it's just there it is, completed, ready to go, locked and loaded. And it's just like, it's like, I didn't know I needed this. I didn't know I wanted this. And now I have it. And it's great. And I do, you know, I would like to have some conversations, some female conversations and hear thoughts from that perspective. Because up to this point, I have not, apart from, I guess, the director, because it's literally her statement, right? Apart from that, I have not really spoke to anybody about it. You're the first person I've really spoken to about it. So I'm curious to have those conversations as well.
Yeah, I gotta make my wife watch this. Like when she heard who directed it, like I said, Revenge is the only movie like that she'll watch. She's like, I didn't know who directed this. Had I known, I would have gone with you. I would have been there with you 100%. So I will absolutely watch this with my wife. I can't wait to see what she thinks about it.
This was really fun. Again, Bryan, thank you so much.
Glad we finally made it happen. We've tried a few times.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Weren't we going to do Batman? Something
we
Batman?
were. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what they did at the Alamo today when I went to go to Beetlejuice? They were doing a Batman Forever watch party, and they had swag that they left on the table. Riddler.
Oh, there you go.
No, look at this.
Ooh, very nice.
The Harvey Dent Two-Face coin.
That's awesome.
Heads you live, tails you die. Oh my God, was I not expecting to get that today? Yeah, well, listen, next time there's another movie that warrants a conversation like this, I would love to have you back on, and we'll do it again. We'll do it again.
That sounds awesome.
We have a wonderful way of saying goodbye here on the Frumess channel. We say peace, hair grease, and we will see you next time for another rousing discussion. Bryan, hang on.